Здравствуйте. I just came back from from another lecture from the series about national stereotypes. This time it was about Russians. And as usual, I asked the students to give me some stereotypes, negative, neutral or controversial, and positive ones, and we were putting them in a table on the wall, and then we were discussing those characteristics. So, without further ado, they have stated that Russians are famous for their very bad roads and conditions of those roads. Well, if you have a country of that size, of that big size, it's impossible to have all the roads in a good conditions, and even Canadians and the USA have problems with it. And what's more, the Russians really live in the in a very bad conditions sometimes. I mean, as far as weather is concerned, because they really live very high to the north. Whereas, for instance, the Canadians live mostly in the zone very close to the US border. Of course, obviously, it's cold, so it's another negative stereotype. It's not good that it's cold, but it's cold, so just how the nature is. Another stereotype is that they are, negative stereotype is that they are bad drivers. Hard to say. Usually people from big countries are bad drivers because they are so much used to the conditions when they have no one ahead and no one behind, and when they are starting to move in the traffic, then there is a problem. Communism, that Russians are communists or natural communists. Which is funny because, for instance, Marx who despised the Russians, was of an opinion that communism can exist only in a highly industrialized nation, and we can doubt if Russia was ever industrialized really. But okay, definitely it wasn't in 1917 a very industrialized place. So, but the inclination towards communism, I think it's not on the basis of national characteristics. It's more on the basis of what was there before. For instance, the conservative Christian thinker and political author, Erich von Kühnert-Ledin, has presented his idea, a very interesting one, that the countries in which the monasteries were really popular, and convents and monasteries were popular, those countries were supporting communism later. Or regions, countries or regions. So Russia, many monasteries, southern Italy, and Catalonia, and so on. So it's maybe it's a good trace to understand this problem. But I wouldn't say that Russians are natural communists. For instance, it's enough to merely observe that communism was a little bit a product of a while, a general chaos, a lost war of the Imperial Russia against the Germans. The Germans won. The government collapsed. Then it was succeeded by a very weak government of Mr. Kerensky, and then a small group of Bolshevist members of the Bolshevist movement took the occasion, and they won, although they were not very numerous. They were really the Menshevists, not the Bolshevists really, but they totally mixed up it in their propaganda later. But they were small number, but they were very much like very ruthless. For instance, the Russian communists they prepared lists of people who are capable of bearing arms, and they were just going on the trains and shooting all the people who could potentially bear arms.